This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
Thank heavens for the friendly neighborhood vet. They tend to the family pets, they tend to the livestock on the farm. But what about wild animals? Is there really a vet for them? Well, there is, and she's my guest this hour, helping assess disease in bats, deer, and other creatures that never call ahead for an appointment. The Kentucky State Wildlife Veterinarian, Dr. Iga Stasiak, next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
Boys were in trouble. About 10 seconds later, he said boys were going down.
A true story.
And it sunk right out from under us.
20 degrees.
Within seconds, one boating trip went
straight down.
The water was bone-chilling.
Once you hit that water, it's so cold you can't move.
The human body wasn't designed for this.
It took my breath away as soon as I hit it, and my hands were so cold in a matter of seconds that I couldn't pop the clip on my waders to get them off.
Conditions were so bad, it's amazing that anybody survived.
Perfect for duck hunting, but not for a swim in the middle of a river.
Going overboard is never the thought.
You have to think ahead.
Fun can turn frantic in seconds.
There's no time to react when your world just sinks out from under you.
3 hunters, 2 survivors, 1 reason.
Your life jacket's got your back.
Make sure your first mate isn't your last.
I really don't think that I could have made it without a life jacket.
Your Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife reminds you, your life jacket's got your back, and the backing of sportsmen on winter water everywhere. Welcome to Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglin, and thank goodness for the friendly neighborhood veterinarian. Salvation to many a sick dog, cat, parakeet, but their skills go much further, and we can think of hundreds of critters that share the state with us, from bats to bald eagles, Rocky Mountain elk. Who tends to their ills? 2 come to mind: Mother Nature and my guest today, wildlife veterinarian Dr. Iga Stasiak.
Thank you for having me.
One thing about you, one thing about me, if I were on the air where you're from, Canada, they'd say, that kid has an accent.
That's right.
I do have an accent. It's terrible. But in Kentucky, it sort of blends right in. You, on the other hand, do sound like you're from out of town.
I do, and a few people have remarked on it.
So where are you from?
Well, I'm actually from Windsor, Ontario, so just across the border from Detroit, Michigan. So not really too far north of here, but originally I'm from Poland, so my family actually immigrated from Poland.
Did you grow up in Poland?
I did, up until the age of 7.
You speak Polish or German, Austrian?
Polish with my family.
Nice.
Yep.
And so from there you went to Windsor.
That's where I went to school. That's where I went to college. And then I moved on and started vet school just a few hours away near Toronto.
So you're a wildlife veterinarian. Let me start off by saying this. If we in the United States talk about the survival of the fittest thing, the weak animals, the injured animals are the ones that get taken and eaten by predators. And that leaves the stronger animals to survive, so those genes carry on. And where does a veterinarian fit into that?
Well, that's a really important question. What you describe is really how it's been historically, but a lot of things have changed in the last several decades. We have a very developing world. We're seeing growing human population on a planet with limited resources, and that's put a lot of pressure on wildlife and wild places. We're seeing accelerated rates of climate change, declining air and water quality, habitat degradation, and all those factors are putting stressors on wildlife populations. And so the natural evolution, of species and survival of the fittest is in some ways being altered, and so we're not seeing that natural progression. Now species are being more susceptible to various diseases. They're succumbing to other stressors in the environment, such as contaminants, and they're becoming more vulnerable. And it's happening at an accelerated rate, and that's sort of where wildlife veterinarian comes in. Now we're looking at the bigger picture and trying to understand how those stressors are impacting wildlife health.
I've heard it said that departments of fish and wildlife, wherever they may be, aren't as concerned about individual animals as they are the overall health of a population of animals, deer, for example. Is that changing at all?
Generally, it's true. We are concerned about the health of wildlife populations as a whole, but in some cases, you're seeing populations being declining and being depleted to such levels where you're seeing inbreeding in the population, and you're now having to concern yourself more with the individual animal. And this is seen in a number of cases where we've had populations that have been extirpated from the wild, bison across the grasslands. We've had, black-footed ferrets, marmots in Canada, in the western part of Canada, but many species that have been extirpated from the wild, and now there's reintroduction programs. There's more of a focus for those species on individual animals and captive breeding and trying to propagate these species, reintroduce them back into the wild, and sometimes expand the population. And of course, we've been involved with the elk reintroduction programs here in Kentucky, and certain other species that we've been focusing on. And sometimes that does start with an individual animal.
My view of a veterinarian basically is the person who goes to Auburn University, gets a degree, sets up a pet clinic and takes care of the community dogs and cats. Maybe we'll go to the farm and help with horses, pigs, cows, birthings. That's not what you do, is it?
No, not at all. But I did start out that way. So when I started vet school, I thought that's what a veterinarian did. In the back of my mind, I had always this vision of wildlife conservation and trying to make a contribution to wildlife health and just sustainable wildlife populations. But in vet school, especially early on, we weren't necessarily exposed to the idea of wildlife or ecosystem health or looking at biodiversity populations. And I was very fortunate through my early career to have good mentors and good opportunities, and I was involved in some programs. There was a program in Florida and South Africa geared at veterinary students and veterinarians in their early career as well. And we spent some time learning about wildlife conservation in developing countries in South Africa, working with game managers there and various professionals who are involved in various management activities. And I realized there's more to veterinary medicine than just clinical medicine, and there's a real need for it. And so I've been very fortunate to have a lot of those sort of opportunities.
Specialties in the field of veterinary medicine, I'm finding aquatic, small animal, wildlife, large mammal, avian. What different types of vets are there?
Just as many different types of vets as there are
species?
Species, exactly. It's such a wide, very diverse field, and that's what's so amazing about it. But, I couldn't have seen that when I went into veterinary medicine. But there are veterinarians that specialize in different species, and they're more general zoo veterinarians. And I actually did do a specialty 3-year residency at the Toronto Zoo and the University of Guelph in zoo medicine and pathology, which is investigation of disease in wildlife. And so there are veterinarians that work with a variety of species, and there's a lot of intersection or dialogue between the fields. But as a wildlife veterinarian, we're more focused on population level health. But a lot of those earlier experiences have definitely translated to the work that I do today.
Does that decision need to be made early on before you even take that first class? This is the type of veterinary medicine I'm going to go into? Or is it all the same field of study?
As a veterinarian, you do need to learn those basics of anatomy and physiology, how animal systems work, individual animal health, and then you can extrapolate that to other species. But wildlife medicine is very different, and it is a more specialized field. So usually you do have to look elsewhere to get those experiences, and that may involve traveling to international conferences, working with researchers and biologists that work for wildlife management agencies or other agencies. And I was fortunate to have some of those opportunities working with some veterinarians that had been working overseas on projects with sea turtles and other species.
If you watch television here in Kentucky, you'll see commercials on for lawyers, and there'll be a disclaimer at the bottom of that commercial that says Kentucky doesn't specify different types of law practice. if you're a lawyer, you're a lawyer. What do you go into from there is sort of your choice. If that's corporate law or criminal law. And I'm wondering if veterinarians all come out of the school with the same certificate, and from there they decide.
That's precisely true. So as a veterinarian, you graduate with the same degree, and then you can specialize.
We will have to pick up there. We need to get to a break. Kentucky wildlife veterinarian Dr. Iga Stasiak is my special guest. My name is Charlie Baglin, and you're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin, and we are having conversations today about health care. Not so much as it applies to you, but to everything else. Take your doctor, for example, and don't let me oversimplify this, but at the end of the day, your doctor needs to know about you. It's one species, the human species. And yes, there are men and women and young and old and different races and disease certain ones of us have, but one species. Oftentimes, they'll need to know about other species and how they affect us, such as snake bites or dog bites, bird flu. And a veterinarian is that one doctor that seems to get everything else tossed in her lap, especially a wildlife veterinarian. Dr. Iga Stasiak, the state wildlife veterinarian, is my guest, and I'll ask you to comment on that.
I see veterinary medicine as a transdisciplinary field, so there's no way you can know it all or learn it all. In fact, in vet school, we typically only focus on domestic animal species, livestock, pets, dogs, cats. We have a few lectures on exotic pets, such as parrots or ferrets. So really, it's about branching out to other fields and specialists in different areas. So if you're, studying fungi or studying insects or wanting to learn a little bit more about the health of various mollusks or other maybe lesser recognized species, you really do need to work with biologists and specialists in those fields. And this sort of stems from what we call the One Health movement, which really arose in the 1960s in response to a need to address the global health concerns, where we started noticing declining health in both wildlife populations and human populations, and recognizing we need to work together. Because of that, we've learned by working together we can obtain information that we wouldn't otherwise have, and so some of that veterinary expertise maybe can translate to what we know about other species. But what we know about disease transmission and the sort of transdisciplinary education we received as veterinarians, it can be used to address a wide variety of global health concerns.
American mammals total 482, 360 species of birds in Kentucky. I've had this on my wall for a long time. I trust the numbers are still pretty close to being right. 230 species of fish. Do you deal with fish?
Not so much yet, but I have dealt with fish in the past. 105
amphibians and reptiles. 350 or so species of birds. 76 mammals in Kentucky. 103 mussels. 12,000 insects. Those aren't on your patient list, right?
Actually, majority of those are. And it's incredible the diversity of species we have here in Kentucky. We've got the highest diversity of salamander species in North America. We've got 35 different species of salamanders here. Those are increasingly being threatened. We're seeing emergence of fungal infections. There's a new fungus called salamander Kittredge fungus that is decimating salamanders in Europe, believed to have been brought over from Asia with the exotic pet trade. And so actually we're starting an amphibian disease surveillance program statewide, where we're going to be monitoring amphibian populations and testing for this fungus to see if it has been introduced. It can potentially impact our native species here, and so that is a big concern. And we don't have a really good understanding of disease in amphibian populations, but because they're so prevalent, salamanders are the most prevalent, most abundant forest floor vertebrates here in Kentucky. And I'm sure that declining populations could impact the health of the entire ecosystem, all the way up the food web.
Amphibians, they are what we call a bioindicator.
Yes.
If there's something ill with them, that's indicative something's wrong with the environment. And it may creep its way up and eventually strike you and me.
That's
Is
right.
that how I should understand that?
Yes, that's right. Amphibians, for many reasons, the fact that they have such a permeable skin, they can absorb contaminants through their skin as they absorb nutrients. They do tend to indicate the health and quality of the ecosystem. And if we start seeing changes or declines in their population, that may be a very good indicator that we need to be on the lookout for potential issues that might work themselves up the food web and potentially even impact humans.
So we're talking about this in the abstract. Are there specific examples, a frog perhaps, in Kentucky that is being affected?
At this point, we don't have a lot of information about disease in amphibian populations, and that's the goal with the Amphibian Disease Surveillance Program, that we can start to piece together some of this information to see if amphibians in certain regions are being more impacted than others. But there's been lots of studies done elsewhere, particularly in South America, where they are seeing large-scale impacts on amphibian populations, a lot of it related to contaminants or pollution, some of it related to climate change. There are global amphibian declines that we're seeing right now. Kittredge fungus, which is another type of fungus impacting amphibian populations across the globe. There's a virus called ranavirus, also has impacted populations, and we're losing amphibian species at an alarming rate. Hundreds of species of amphibians have gone extinct as a result of the Kittredge fungus, and many species are threatened. And that is an indicator of changes in our landscape and what's happening. We don't know exactly why it's happening, but we think it may be linked to both pollution, potentially changes in climate, and those sort of factors.
I was looking at, if I wanted to be a wildlife veterinarian, the job description that comes with that. Tell me if this is right or close to being right. Wildlife veterinarians specialize in exotic animal medicine. So exotic means it's not from here.
Right.
It's not native, which represents a unique set of challenges within the job. These vets must be medical specialists in hundreds of different species. Hundreds. Whereas, say, my doctor just deals with humans. One species. Each with a unique anatomy, responses to medicine, and you have to understand what is normal and what is abnormal in the way each of these critters will react to the treatment. It can't be done. Can it?
Well, it's a real challenge. In some ways, wildlife veterinarians do need to have a broad understanding of health of various species, but I think what's important to point out is that the vets in this field, they come from a variety of different backgrounds. Some of them have worked in the exotic, with exotic species in zoo. My background was in zoo medicine. Others came through the research route, maybe didn't spend much time in clinical practice or had extensive experience with a variety of species, but they learned they had more of a background in wildlife biology, population level health. So no, I don't think you can know it all. I think you do have to have a strong foundation in general animal health, and then you have to have experiences, an understanding of ecology, wildlife biology, and sort of a broad understanding of the issues in the world to be able to deal with those kinds of questions. But it is really a transdisciplinary field. Any positive impact I have is a result of my relationships with the people I work with, and that's biologists that may specialize in a particular species. So we work really closely here with our deer and elk program, with our biodiversity program this year, working with bats. We did an experimental treatment trial for white nose syndrome, which is a fungus that has decimated bats across the northeastern U.S. and Canada. Believed to have been introduced in 2006. That was the first year it was detected, and has really impacted our populations here. So I've worked closely with the biodiversity program, with other programs, and that's really what it's all about.
What is your specialty?
That's a good question. I think I see myself as more of a generalist. So I do have a fairly diverse background. So in vet school, it was, I did take some time to do various programs in conservation biology, and these were typically extracurricular. So I'd take the summer and work on various programs. But I also did a specialty in zoo medicine and pathology, so 3 years, and part of that was a graduate thesis, and I studied bats. I was more focused on captive bat management at that time, but learned a fair deal about bats and bat conservation. I've spent time working up in northern Canada in the Northwest Territories, where I've worked with large populations on a large landscape level, dealing with caribou and bison and species that are in decline, and they're really impacting the people up there. I've done field work with sea turtles in Mexico. So I can't say I have one particular specialty.
I'll stop you there. We have a break. Stay with us. I'm Charlie Baglin, and you're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. We are back on Kentucky Afield Radio's Charlie Baglin. If you would like to hear this show again, or maybe share the link, email the link to a friend of yours, it's pretty easy to do. In fact, I think the easiest way to do it is just go on Facebook. Just put in Kentucky Afield Radio in the search box, and there you'll find our page, and the link to the weekly shows right there. Just click on it, hear it again, email it. It's that simple. More with the state wildlife veterinarian just ahead. First up, our fishing report.
This is Rob Roll in the Northwestern Fishery District. Rough River Lake and Nolin River Lake have begun their fall drawdown. Bass are biting well at both Nolin and Rough. Anglers are catching several of them fishing spinnerbaits and rattle baits on the gravelly banks. And on the bigger rock banks, they're using jigs with plastic crawfish. Crappie are holding 10 to 12 feet deep over a structure at both reservoirs. Anglers are doing well at Rough and Nolin. Minnows seem to be outproducing the jigs the last couple of weeks. Our Finns Lakes were stocked with trout 2 weeks ago. Anglers are doing well at all of them. Panther Creek Park, Yellow Creek Park, and Wayman Morris in Owensboro, as well as Madisonville City Park Lake in Madisonville, and Bevel Park in Litchfield. That's an update from the Northwestern Fishery District. Please be safe. Always wear your life jackets.
Hi, this is John Williams with the Fishery Report for Southeast Kentucky. Recent sampling on Lake Cumberland. We've sampled some very nice crappie up in the heads of the creeks, especially Fishing Creek and Wolf Creek. Also, several anglers up there catching fish. Crappie fishing is normally good this time of year on jigs and minnows around cover. Elsewhere on Lake Cumberland in the tailwater, recent sampling, we've seen some nice brown trout near Wolf Creek Dam and Helms Landing. Those big trout go up there to spawn this time of year, and it's an excellent time to catch them. They concentrate there close to the Hatchery Creek. Trout will be stocked in Rock Creek in McCrory County this week. Those usually provide good fishing through the late fall and winter. Elsewhere, Brickyard Ponds over in Knox County, our Finns Lake will be stocked this month with trout. Usually offers good bank access there and good fishing opportunities for trout. As always, good luck and good fishing.
In western Kentucky, I would say that fall fishing is in full swing. We've had some beautiful weather, and the crappie are starting to bite. Spider rigging, doing really well with white crappie out suspended off of the secondary creeks in the embayments, and then even casting the banks for those black crappie this time of year. Those blacks are kind of up on the shoreline. If you love to catch yellow bass, again, a little rooster tail casting along the bank, you're going to catch some largemouth bass. We've had several tournaments, and what I'm hearing is the bass are biting. Alabama rig is what they're biting on, rattle traps, fishing secondary points. Tailwater fishing has also been good. Catfishing is still good in the lakes. The lake is at winter pool, so you got to be careful of those shallow areas that you don't hit a stump. So this is Paul Reister, and I hope you find a good day to go fishing.
fries with gravy or French fries with ketchup? Oddly enough, it comes up in conversation after the break.
Deer in the headlights. Watch out, Mr. Deer.
Singing with your kids in the car is one way to keep deer hazard season in mind. And should a deer catch your headlights, flash those lights, sound your horn, break its concentration to scurry it along.
There's one.
And where there's one, there may be 2 or 3 more. Deer hazard season runs through November. So be wise behind the wheel while nature runs its course. A message from Fish and Wildlife and the Kentucky Office of Highway Safety.
HIP's a hip word. HIP stands for Harvest Information Program. To hunt birds like doves or geese, you must complete the HIP survey first to help officials better estimate game bird populations. Go to the My Profile page at the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website. You just need 5 minutes. fw.ky.gov. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglan. We are into our second half hour. So let me ask you, what's unique about you? Were you born in some faraway land? Did you cross paths with greatness or royalty somewhere in your life? Well, it happens to all of us. And over the years, bits and pieces come together, and they form a story about you, different from the general story your friends or your coworkers may know. Now, this is certainly true with my guest. She is Dr. Iga Stasiak. She serves as the wildlife veterinarian for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Her office is in Frankfort, but her work can basically lead anywhere, and has. I'm not sure if all roads lead to Kentucky, but I'm certainly glad yours did, Doctor. I know it began in Poland, went to Canada, then to the U.S. with a stop in a place called Yellowknife. Where is Yellowknife?
So Yellowknife is in the Northwest Territories, which is one of 3 Canadian territories in northern Canada.
Is that just east of Alaska?
It is.
Even
it's
north
not
of
quite just east of Alaska, but it's quite a bit further east of Alaska. But it's in the subarctic region.
The Yukon is right next to Alaska,
yes.
Right? Okay.
So it's east of the Yukon, and it's a large territory. It spans over 500,000 square miles. So parts are in the Arctic region. We've got Arctic islands north of the tree line, where vegetation is generally sparse, more shrubs and grasses. A majority of the landscape is boreal forest, Canadian shield rock, which sort of forms this undulating rocky surface with interspersed lakes, and very different landscape up there. Yellowknife itself is a city of 20,000, and the entire territory has a population of approximately 40,000.
When you're in Yellowknife, does the rest of the world exist?
Sometimes you do feel a little bit isolated. You tend to focus more on what's around you and the people around you and the landscape, and you do feel a little isolated from the rest of the world. I think because it is so different from the rest of the developed world and the rest of North America.
And your wildlife career was also in southern Canada, so the Toronto Zoo certainly factors into where you were, and that is a standout. That's an educational facility. It's not just for moms and kids to come through and take pictures.
It's an amazing place. It is an AZA accredited facility, American Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and it has very high standards for education and conservation. And really that is the focus of the modern zoo, and a lot of people don't understand that. They see zoos as entertainment facilities, or have how a lot of small zoos have been in the past. But the Toronto Zoo really has made great progress in promoting conservation of species across the world. They've got captive breeding programs for a variety of species. They've been involved in reintroduction programs into wildlife populations.
What was your role there?
I was a veterinary resident, so I was one of 2 residents. There were 3 full-time veterinarians, so I worked alongside the full-time veterinarians in providing care for the animal collection. And at that time, I was also working on a graduate program and doing pathology training, so we would do all the autopsies and investigations of any mortalities at the zoo, and trying to understand disease and manage captive populations to make sure that they're healthy.
I want to talk about more of your global travels and what do you do here in Kentucky, but as long as we're on the subject of Canada, what's your favorite hockey team?
Oh, that's a tough one because I'm going to pick a non-Canadian team because I'm from Windsor, Ontario, so I have to say the Detroit Red Wings.
Okay.
But I shouldn't say that.
Your favorite city for curling?
My parents' house is right next to the curling club in Windsor, Ontario, so I guess maybe I'm...
Are you a curling fan?
No, not particularly.
Most Canadians are.
I think a lot of them are. And maybe it's embarrassing that I haven't been growing up next to a curling club.
Here's the question that has my curiosity up. I went to, where was I? Banff, Alberta. Yet they had a Kentucky Fried Chicken there. And I went in there and I ordered my, two-piece dinner. And I was given French fries with gravy.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, gravy on French fries? No way. And I didn't get it. And I sat down with my meal, sans potatoes, and there sat another couple eating French fries and gravy. And I looked at them. I said, French fries and gravy, really? Oh, yeah. We love it here. Do you like it?
I do, and I do love it. So did you love it?
I've been back in recent years, and I did try it, and I said, yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, so
I like mashed potatoes better.
Well, it's
with
a
gravy.
Classic Canadian meal. It's called Poutine.
Mm-hmm.
Originates in Quebec.
What are the ingredients of poutine?
It's just fries with gravy and cheese curds.
A cheese curd? Is that anything like cottage cheese? What's a curd?
No, it's very different. It's a squeaky type of cheese. When you bite through it, it squeaks.
Really?
It is very good. It is very, very good. You have to try it.
I don't recall ever eating poutine. Simply something about the word just doesn't sound appetizing. I don't speak French, so
yeah,
it is
it's
French.
A delicacy.
It's
a French delicacy.
I'm a connoisseur of KFC because I'm from here and I've met Colonel Sanders, and this was years ago, but it's just delicious. And every time I go to a foreign country, if I can, I'll go to the local Kentucky Fried Chicken there. Have you been to a KFC other than America and Canada?
No, I have not. But I was very surprised when I was living up in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories that they had a KFC up there.
I remember in Montreal it wasn't called KFC. It was PFK. That stands for, it's French, Poulet Frite Kentucky, I think. In Spain, they actually serve beer at KFC.
Really?
In New Zealand, I got my meal, and they serve both mashed potatoes and gravy and French fries with the same meal. 2 types of potatoes, same meal, commonplace. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I am amazed at how many KFCs there are around the world, and probably as I was growing up, the first I heard of Kentucky was related to KFC, and thankfully we've moved past that now and realized it's a beautiful state with a lot of great things to offer here.
What keeps you busy in Kentucky on a day-to-day basis for Wildlife Vet?
Well, we have a number of programs that we're working on, and we've been very busy. We have a chronic wasting disease monitoring program. And if you're not familiar, chronic wasting disease is an infectious disease of deer and elk. And
sort of like mad cow disease, but for deer?
That's right, yes. So it is related to mad cow disease. It is a little bit different, but it does cause a debilitation, wasting, weight loss, and eventual death. Unfortunately, it's a sort of disease that takes years to progress, and it's very difficult to detect. So a deer might be infected, might not be able to detect it for a number of years before it succumbs to the illness. And so this disease has unfortunately been spreading across the Midwestern United States in the last decade. And it's now present in every state surrounding Kentucky other than Indiana and Tennessee. So we're very vigilant and we do have a monitoring program across the state where we are sampling deer. We hope we won't find it, and we've been very fortunate to not find it up until this point. And, we also hope that if we do find it, we're able to find it early and prevent its spread. We work with, like I mentioned, a variety of different programs here. We've been working with the biodiversity program on white nose syndrome, fungal disease that's decimated bat populations across northeastern Canada, and unfortunately that's also happening here in Kentucky. Now, bats are very important to our ecosystem, major predator of night-flying insects, and recent studies have shown they actually save the agricultural industry billions of dollars each year by consuming pests and reducing crop damage. So day to day, I also receive a lot of calls from members of the public, and we really rely on members of the public and our biologists to report instances of disease in wildlife. And sometimes that can be an isolated call. We've got raccoon in a neighborhood that's acting strangely, or someone had a die off of birds at a bird feeder. So we take all those calls seriously and respond to them, and we want to know what's happening on the landscape level. And so it's important to have that relationship with the public.
We had a couple of instances recently in Kentucky that I suspect you had a hand in. Most recently, there was an escape of a monkey. Bath County, summer of 2015.
That's right. You never know what you're going to get any day. So sometimes we do get a variety of different calls, and this call was about a monkey in a residential neighborhood. It was an exotic macaque monkey that may have likely escaped a captive pet. We're not sure exactly where it came from, but we did need to restrain it and brought it to a primate sanctuary.
So the monkey is still alive and well?
That's right.
We also had an instance where a mountain lion was found, Bourbon County. It was put down, as I remember.
That's right.
You did an autopsy on it. I saw you in the paper.
This was a big story for us. First time mountain lion detected in 150 years, and we were concerned that it might be a captive animal. And I was involved with the autopsy on the mountain lion, and we did an investigation. And it took a long time, but we did. We worked with a lot of different agencies across the United States and specialists in mountain lions, and it was definitely, it was probably 3 months into my job, so it was quite an interesting and an exciting experience starting out here.
It's a great way to get your feet wet.
That's right. Definitely wasn't expecting that.
Doctor, let's stop there for this break. When we come back, I'll look for an explanation to some of these pictures I have found of you on Facebook. Is that really what I think it is? We'll have more with Dr. Iga Stasiak, State Wildlife Veterinarian, when we return. My name is Charlie Bagman, and you're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglan. Back now with our final few minutes with the state's wildlife veterinarian, Dr. Iga Stasiak. Back years ago, 1989, there was the Exxon Valdez with their oil spill in Alaska. More recently, 2010, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill down in the Gulf of Mexico. Have you ever worked such a disaster like one of these to come to the aid of shorebirds and wildlife?
I have. I was actually involved with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010 with the sea turtle response effort. There was the Louisiana Marine Mammal Stranding Network there. We were dispatched to the area, and I was involved in helping de-oil the turtles and treat the turtles that were being picked up. And it was pretty devastating to see. We lost a lot of animals, dolphins, sea turtles, birds, and the turtles would come into us. They'd be covered in crude oil. I believe it was over 5 million gallons of crude oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico over the course of the summer. The largest marine oil spill in the history of the petroleum industry. And so I was very fortunate to have an opportunity to work with the sea turtles, and then I think the effects of that oil spill are still being felt today.
Did you have a positive impact on saving animals that otherwise wouldn't have made it?
I think we have, or at least I hope we had. I think those animals wouldn't have otherwise survived, seeing the conditions that they were coming in with. So I hope that was the case.
You mentioned sea turtles. I follow you on Facebook. I've glanced through your photographs. horses, rattlesnakes, bass, beaver. I've seen you at an equine hospital, what looks like a timber wolf, maybe a gray wolf, a loon, songbirds, geese, raccoons, lizards, turtles, gar, sea turtle, walrus. The walrus got my attention.
Oh, I think you're thinking a manatee in Florida.
Is it a manatee?
It was a manatee in Florida, and I was doing a marine vet course, marine mammal medicine course down there, and we were working with the manatees. They can get pretty big, and they are endangered. I think their population is actually improving in Florida. Yes, I always had a fondness for manatees.
There was a picture of you with a camel. Bats. Saw you in Austin.
Congress Avenue Bridge. It's one of the largest emergencies of Mexican free-tailed bats in the world. So every summer, 1.5 million bats emerge from under the Congress Avenue Bridge in Austin, and it's quite a spectacle. Initially, people were afraid and worried about it, and eventually the conservation message got out, and it became a huge tourist destination. Now people flock to the area to see the spectacle. It's like a cloud in the sky.
It is really neat to see. If you ever could go to Austin, Texas, you should go. Is this year-round that they do that, or is it just in summer?
It's just in the summer, so they do migrate in the spring from Mexico.
Saw a photograph of you with a giant snapping turtle. Were you holding that turtle on your own?
It was a big turtle.
That's heavy.
That's right. That was I was actually at this great center, the Wildlife Center of Virginia, which is a great wildlife education center, and I had spent a month there after I had finished vet school, and we worked with a variety of native species, and the snapping turtle was one that probably had been injured, maybe hit by a car when it had come in.
Here was another mammal. Is it a dolphin, or was that a porpoise, the photograph?
I think it was likely a dolphin. It was probably in Florida at a rehabilitation facility there.
Where's the next adventure to?
Well, I think the next adventure is Kentucky, and I've really enjoyed my time here so far. It's been fantastic. We've got such a diversity of species here. I think 15 species of bats. Mentioned 35 species of salamanders. Now we've got deer and elk and many migratory bird species that we work with here. So it's a great opportunity to get to work with so many different species here on the landscape level and on a population level.
So, generally speaking, Doctor, what's the prognosis for Kentucky doing?
I want to say things are starting to look up in some ways, whereas in other ways we're seeing, declining air, water quality, and then certain issues that may be impacting our wildlife. Overall, we've got very healthy populations of deer and elk here. A lot of our populations are thriving, and unfortunately, others are not doing so well. So it's hard to generalize. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, our bats are not doing well, and we're seeing 80 to 90% population declines in some of the hibernacula. Otherwise migratory birds, a lot of those species appear to be doing well. So it really does depend on the species we're dealing with.
What can an individual do to make a difference?
Well, a couple things I would say. One is that feel connected to nature. And it was, I think, Jacques Cousteau who said people protect what they love. And so the more we get out on the landscape, the more we spend time in nature and outdoors, we're going to be able to appreciate wildlife and foster this sort of need to protect what we know. And of course, hunters and trappers have been great as far as supporting conservation efforts here within our department. So I would say get out as much as you can to appreciate wildlife and explore and share that with other people that may not have that exposure. But also try to limit your consumptive uses of water and certain resources, and try to make healthy choices, sustainable choices in your lifestyle.
Do you have to take an oath? Like in the United States, a physician will take an oath to do no harm. What type of oath do you take, and is that the oath you take in Canada the same as it would be in Poland as the United States?
The oath for a veterinarian is very similar to the oath for a doctor, and part of that is to do no harm, and I think it's probably fairly universal.
I always ask a question of anybody on the show, that relates to driving. Do you text and drive?
I think it's happened once before, and actually I learned my lesson then. It's a very terrible thing to do, and obviously a lot of accidents caused. So I really try to be very cognizant of it and try not to check my text messages while I'm driving.
It's rare that I get a yes, but I'm not going to say that was a yes. You'll say no that you don't, but you did.
That's right.
Once.
That's right.
Did once.
I did, and I regretted it.
Dr. Stasiak, thanks a million. Go Canada.
Great, thanks.
Dr. Iga Stasiak, State Wildlife Veterinarian in Kentucky. We are out of time. This is Charlie Baglin inviting you to join us in a week, and we will go inside, outdoors again, here on Kentucky Afield Radio.